My name is Lorraine, and I am 61 years old. Last night, my own son hit me until I bled over nothing more than a bowl of unsalted soup. While I was left on the kitchen floor, wiping up my own blood with an old rag, he calmly went to his room, closed the door, and fell asleep as if nothing had happened, as if striking his own mother were the most ordinary thing in the world. Before we go on, do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We bring you new stories every day. Hit like and let us know what city you are watching from in the comments. This morning, I woke up with a sore body, dark bruises across my arms, and a cut on my lip that still hurts whenever I try to talk. But what cuts deepest is not the physical pain. It is the humiliation. It is knowing that my own son, the one I raised with all my love, the one I gave everything to, now sees me as nothing more than his personal maid. It is knowing that my only purpose in this world is to serve him and keep silent. I got up at 5 a.m, just like every other day. Griffin was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table in his impeccable gray suit, scrolling on his phone. He did not even glance at me when I entered. Without looking up, he simply said, "Breakfast. Hurry up. I have an important meeting." It was as if nothing had happened, as if he had not screamed at me the night before, calling me worthless, useless, and saying that if I were not his mother, he would have thrown me out on the street. I prepared his scrambled eggs exactly the way he likes them, with 3 spoonfuls of shredded cheese, 2 slices of toasted bread, and black coffee with no sugar. Everything had to be perfect, measured down to the smallest detail, because if anything is even slightly wrong, he explodes. And when Griffin explodes, I am the one who pays the consequences. While he was eating breakfast, the sound of a key turning in the front door lock echoed through the house. It was a young, elegant woman named Rainey, his wife, who always greets me with a fake smile and treats me as if I am invisible. She walked in, wearing a light green dress and high heels, kissed Griffin on the cheek, and sat at the table as if she owned the place. "Good morning, Mrs. Keats," she said to me in that sweet voice she only uses when Griffin is present. "How are you this morning?" I wanted to tell her that I had woken up covered in bruises from her husband, that I had marks all over my back, that I could not take it any more. But instead, I forced a smile and said, "I am fine, thank you." "Are you going to have some breakfast, Rainey?" I asked. Griffin shot me a warning look. His eyes clearly said, "One wrong word, and tonight will be worse." Then he added with that fake smile he only puts on when there is an audience, "Look, Mom, I bought you this new makeup. It is perfect for covering those little scrapes you got when you tripped last night." Yes, little scrapes. That is what he calls what he did to me, as if it had been an accident, as if I had tripped and fallen right into his fist by myself. I took the makeup without saying a word. It was an expensive foundation, the kind that costs more than $50. He probably bought it with my retirement money, since he controls my entire bank account. He says it is for my own good, that at my age I cannot handle money anymore. The truth is, I have not seen a single penny of my pension for 2 long years. Rainey looked at him with those shining eyes of admiration. "You are so thoughtful, honey, always taking care of your mom. If only she knew. If only she knew that her perfect husband, that successful executive who manages million-dollar accounts at the office, comes home every night to take out his frustration on me." After breakfast, Griffin put on his red tie, grabbed his briefcase, and whispered in my ear while Rainey was touching up her makeup. "Remember what we talked about last night. If you ever open your mouth, if you tell anyone what happens here, you are going to regret it. No one will believe you. You are just a crazy old woman living off her son's charity." His words chilled me to the bone. They left together holding hands like the perfect couple they pretend to be. I watched them from the window as they got into Griffin's new car, a sleek black sedan that cost more than $400,000. My money, every bit of it, bought with my money. When the house finally fell silent, I sat in the kitchen and began to cry. Not tears of sadness, but of rage, of helplessness. Because I know I have to do something, yet I do not know what. I know I cannot keep living like this, but I also do not know how to get out of this endless nightmare. I sat in that silent kitchen for hours, watching the sunlight slowly crawl its way across the floor tiles. This house used to be my sanctuary. I bought it 30 years ago with the money I saved working as an executive secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates. 40 years of my life dedicated to that job. Getting up at 5 in the morning, always on time, organizing the lives of others with discipline and precision. I never imagined I would end up a prisoner in my own home. It all started 3 years ago when Griffin divorced his first wife. He showed up at my door one night with a suitcase in his hand and that look of a lost boy that always melted my heart. "Mom, I need to stay here for a while, just until I sort out my financial situation." He told me the divorce had left him bankrupt, that he had lost his house, that he had nowhere else to live. And I, like the foolish mother I have always been, opened my door and my heart. "Of course, son, this is your home too." How naive I was. I did not know I was inviting the devil himself to live with me. The first few months seemed normal. Griffin would get up early, go to work, come back at night, and we would share dinner together. He even helped me with the grocery shopping. I truly believed we would finally have the mother and son relationship I had always dreamed of. But little by little, things began to change. First, it was small comments. "Mom, this food is too salty." "Mom, why do you not clean the bathroom better?" "Mom, your clothes are too wrinkled." It is embarrassing. Comments that cut me deeply, but I justified them thinking he was just stressed from the divorce. Then he started meddling with my finances. "Mom, at your age, you should not be handling so much cash. It is dangerous. Let me help you with your accounts." And I, like the idiot I was, gave him access to my bank account. It is just to help me, I thought. He is my son. He would never hurt me. How terribly wrong I was. In 6 months, Griffin had completely taken over my money. My monthly pension of $1,200 went directly into his account. He gave me $20 a week for personal expenses, as if I were a child receiving an allowance. When I asked him about the rest of the money, he would say, "Mom, I am investing your savings to help them grow. Trust me." Then Rainey came along, a woman 25 years younger than him, with a perfect smile and an ambition you could spot from a mile away. Griffin met her at his office where she worked as a marketing assistant. 6 months later, they got married in a ceremony that cost more than $100,000. My money, of course. Since Rainey entered our lives, everything got worse. Griffin started treating me like the housemaid. "Mom, make dinner for Rainey and me. Something elegant. She is used to fine things. Mom, clean the guest bathroom. Important people are coming over. Mom, wash this shirt by hand. It is too expensive for the washing machine." And I always obeyed. I obeyed because I was afraid he would get angry, afraid he would follow through on his threat to kick me out of my own house. Because even though the house is legally mine, Griffin convinced me to put his name on the deed too, for security. He said, "Mom, just in case something happens to you." The violence began a year ago. At first, it was accidental, pushes, then sharp pinches on my arm when I did not do something fast enough. "You are driving me crazy, Mom. You are too slow." Then it escalated to blows on the shoulder slaps when the food was not to his liking, and punches to my back if I was not cleaning quickly enough. But last night was different. Last night he crossed a line I never thought he would dare cross. I had prepared vegetable soup for dinner. It was a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays we always have a light meal. I carefully set the table, served the toasted bread and the steaming hot soup. Everything was perfect. Griffin came home tired from the office, sat at the table without even greeting me, took the first spoonful, and his face instantly changed. "What the hell is this?" Griffin yelled, spitting the soup right back into the bowl. "It has no salt. It is as bland as water." I immediately apologized. "I am sorry, son. I forgot the salt. Let me add a little." But it was too late. Griffin stood up from the table like a wild animal, grabbed the bowl of soup, and hurled it straight into my face. The hot liquid burned my cheek. Pieces of porcelain cut deep into my lip. "You are useless," he screamed, grabbing my arm so hard I knew it would leave a bruise. 40 years, working as a secretary, and you cannot even make a decent soup. You are pathetic. He shoved me against the cold kitchen wall. My head hit the tile, and I saw stars explode in my vision. But he did not stop there. He slapped me so hard, my ear buzzed for hours. Then another one, and another one after that. "Rainey is bringing her friends over for lunch tomorrow," he told me, while I covered my face with both hands. "I want you to prepare something special, and you had better make sure it is perfect, because if you make me look bad, if you show even one sign of how pathetic you are, I swear to God I will kick you out of this house." Then he calmed down, just as he always does after he hits me. He bent down, helped me up, and wiped the blood from my lip with a napkin. "I am sorry, Mom," he said in a soft voice. "I just get so frustrated seeing you like this. I know you can do better. It is all for your own good, so you will learn." And then he went off to sleep peacefully, as if nothing had ever happened. I stayed awake all night in the kitchen, cleaning up the remains of the soup and the broken porcelain scattered across the floor. Every little piece I picked up felt like I was collecting the fragments of my own dignity. My lip was still bleeding, but it was no longer only physical pain I was feeling. It was something deeper, something darker. It was the realization that my own son, the person I once loved, more than anything in this world, had become my tormentor. As I scrubbed the floor, I started to remember how we got here. Griffin was not always like this. When he was a boy, he was sweet, affectionate, even tender. His father left us when he was 8 years old, and from that moment on, it was just him and me against the world. I worked double shifts for years to give him everything he needed. I put him in the best private school I could possibly afford. I bought him designer clothes, paid for piano lessons, English lessons, anything he asked for. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I spoiled him so much that he never learned the value of respect, of effort, of real love. I always gave him everything on a silver platter without ever asking for anything in return. And now, 35 years later, I am the one paying the price for my own decisions. At dawn, I heard his footsteps coming down the stairs. My heart started to beat fast, as it always does when he is near. It is incredible how a person can live in a constant state of alert in their very own home. He walked into the kitchen already dressed in his black suit, checking his phone as he always did every morning. This time, he did not even ask for breakfast. He just sat down and waited for me to serve it to him. I prepared his scrambled eggs, his black coffee, his 2 slices of toasted bread, all in absolute silence. He ate while answering emails as if I were completely invisible. At 7:30, Rainey arrived. This time, She wore a tight yellow dress and high heels that echoed on the floor like hammer blows. She looked radiant as always. I wondered if she ever noticed the bruises on my arms, the marks on my skin, the way I flinched every single time Griffin raised his voice. "Good morning, Mrs. Keats," she said to me, with that plastic smile of hers. "How are you feeling today?" "Fine, thank you," I lied as always. "Are you going to have some breakfast?" I asked. "Just a coffee, please," she said. "A light one with artificial sweetener." As I was serving her coffee, I noticed her observing me out of the corner of her eye. Her gaze lingered on my swollen lip, on the bruise peeking out from the collar of my blouse. For a moment, I thought she might say something, that she might finally ask what had happened to me, but instead, she simply looked away and went back to her phone. Griffin finished his breakfast and looked at me intently. "Remember what I told you last night? Mom Rainey is bringing 3 of her friends over for lunch. I want you to prepare something special: seafood pasta, Caesar salad desserts, and buy some white wine. The good stuff, not that cheap garbage you are used to buying." Griffin gave me 3 $20 bills as if it were some great generosity. $60 to prepare a lunch for 5 people with what he spends on a single shirt. And one more thing he added, leaning in close to whisper in my ear while Rainey was not looking. "Put on that makeup I bought you. Cover those marks well. If any of her friends ask anything strange, if they make any comment about your appearance, you are going to regret it. Do you understand me?" I nodded, feeling my hands tremble slightly. He smiled, kissed my forehead like the perfect son he pretends to be, and then they left together. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a kitchen chair. $60 for an elaborate lunch. Fresh seafood alone costs at least 30 a pound. The good wine, another 20. How am I supposed to work miracles with so little money? But it was not just the money that distressed me. It was the pressure of having to act normal in front of Rainey's friends, of pretending to be the happy mother-in-law of a flawless family, when the reality is that I am nothing but an abused woman trapped in her own home. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and hardly recognized my own reflection. My lip was swollen and purple. There was a small cut at the corner of my mouth. My eyes were red and puffy from all the crying. The bruise on my neck looked like a dark stain spreading down toward my collarbone. I opened the makeup that Griffin had given me. It was an expensive imported brand of foundation, the kind that elegant women like Rainey use every day. I started applying it carefully, covering every mark, every bruise, every trace of evidence of what really happens inside this house. As I put on my makeup, I could not help but think about all the other times I had done this. How many mornings I had woken up to hide bruises, to invent excuses about falls and accidents. I tripped on the table. The closet door slipped out of my hand. I fell down the stairs. One lie after another, all to protect my son's reputation. I went out to do the shopping, my list in hand, and my perfectly made-up face. At the supermarket, I tried to stretch those $60 as far as I could. I bought frozen shrimp instead of fresh prawns. The cheapest brand of wine that was not terrible. Pasta on sale. Every single penny counted. As I waited in line to pay, an older woman approached me. It was Della, my next-door neighbor, a widow in her 60s who has always been kind to me. "Hello, Lorraine," she said with a warm smile. "How are you doing, dear? I have not seen you in the yard lately." "Hello, Della," I answered. "I am fine, thanks. I have just been really busy with things around the house." She looked at me intently, and I noticed her eyes linger on my lip despite the makeup. "Did you hurt your mouth?" she asked with genuine concern. My heart started to race. No, it is nothing, I lied. I just bumped into the closet door last night. You know how clumsy I am. Della frowned, but she did not push it further. Well, if you ever need anything, you know where I live. I am always home in the afternoons. Her words went straight to my heart. It had been so long since anyone had offered me genuine help, since anyone had treated me with true kindness. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to tell her everything, to beg for her help to confess the nightmare I was living in day after day. But Griffin's voice echoed mercilessly in my head. If you ever open your mouth, if you tell anyone what happens here, you are going to regret it. No one will believe you. You are just a crazy old woman living off her son's charity. Thank you, Della, I said simply. You are very kind. I went back inside and started cooking like a mad woman. I had to have everything ready by noon when Rainey and her friends would arrive. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, set the table with the good china, and arranged flowers carefully in the center. Everything had to be flawless. While I cooked, I could not stop thinking about what Della had said. If you ever need anything, you know where I live. Did she suspect something? Had she heard the screams that echoed from my house at night? At 11:30, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. Mrs. Keats, a man's voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is the accountant from your son Griffin's company. We need to speak with you urgently about some discrepancies in the accounts. Could you come to the office this afternoon? My heart stopped. Discrepancies. I do not understand. I would rather not discuss this over the phone. Mrs. Keats, can you come at 3 this afternoon? It is very important. I hung up my hands, trembling uncontrollably. What could Griffin have done at work? Why were they calling me of all people? A bad feeling settled in the pit of my stomach, but I did not have time to think about it anymore, because Rainey and her friends were already arriving. The doorbell rang at exactly 12 o'clock. I took a deep breath, touched up my makeup one last time, and went to open the door. There was Rainey with her 3 friends, all dressed as if they were heading to a fashion show. Expensive dresses, designer purses, shoes that probably cost more than my entire monthly pension. Hello, Mrs. Keats, Rainey said, in that sweet voice she saves for special occasions. Let me introduce you to my friends. This is Lois. She works in human resources. This is Faye from the marketing department. And this is Corinne from legal. My heart nearly stopped when I heard that last name. It could not be a coincidence. I looked at her closely, and sure enough, it was her. Corinne, my younger sister, whom I had not seen in more than 2 years. Corinne looked at me with the same shock, but we both played it cool. She has always been smarter than me, more cunning. She immediately understood that something strange was going on, especially when she noticed my heavily made-up face and my nervous demeanor. It is a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Keats, she said to me, formally, as if she did not know me at all. Your daughter-in-law has told us so much about you. I invited them into the dining room, where I had laid out my best tablecloth, the china I inherited from my mother, and the crystal glasses I only used on the most special occasions. Everything looked elegant, just as Griffin had demanded. I served lunch, trying to keep my hands steady. The shrimp pasta had turned out well, despite the tight budget. The Caesar salad looked fresh and crisp. The bread was warm. I even managed to prepare a simple tiramisu for dessert. The women ate and chatted cheerfully about work, their lives, and their weekend plans. I went back and forth from the kitchen, serving more wine and clearing plates, playing the role of the perfect hostess I was supposed to be. But Corinne's eyes never left me. I knew that look. It was the same one she used when we were children, when she knew I was hiding something. Throughout the meal, she observed me, discreetly studying my every movement. The food is delicious, Lois commented. Did you cook all of this yourself, Mrs. Keats? Yes, I love to cook, I replied with a forced smile. It is always a pleasure when it is for such lovely people as yourselves. How lucky Griffin is to have such a dedicated mother-in-law, Fay added. It is hard to find women who are so devoted to the home these days. Rainey smiled proudly. It is true, Mrs. Keats always takes care of everything. It is like having a housekeeper, but better, because she does it with love. Her words stung me like daggers, but I forced myself to keep my smile. A housekeeper. That is what she thought of me. Not a mother, not a person with rights and dignity, but a free servant. Corinne cleared her throat. And what did you do before Mrs. Keats? Were you always a homemaker? I paused, feeling a small surge of pride for the first time in a very long time. I worked for 40 years as an executive secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates. I retired 3 years ago. Corinne's eyes lit up. Sullivan and Associates was one of the most prestigious firms in the city where she had once worked as an intern during her law studies. How interesting, she exclaimed. I know that firm. They have a very good reputation. You must have met a lot of important people in all those years. I did, I said this time, with a more genuine smile. I met judges, prosecutors, important lawyers. I even helped with some big cases. Mr. Sullivan always said I was indispensable. Have you ever had to smile and hide your real pain just to keep the peace? Comment number 1 below. If you know how it feels and share your story so others can understand, they are not alone. Rainey looked uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. She did not like me being the center of attention or having my professional accomplishments mentioned. She quickly changed the subject. Well, but now Mrs. Keats is retired and enjoying her well-deserved rest, she said, with that fake smile of hers. Griffin takes care of everything, her finances, her needs. He is such a responsible son. Corinne looked at me intently when Rainey said that. I know my sister, and I know those words sounded strange to her. A woman who worked 40 years at an important law firm does not need her son to handle her finances. The lunch continued with trivial conversation, but I could feel the tension quietly growing. Corinne kept watching me, and I knew she had already noticed something was off. When I went into the kitchen to bring out the dessert, she followed me. Do you need any help? She asked, but I knew she was really looking for a moment to talk to me alone. No thanks. Everything is under control, I replied, avoiding her gaze. Lorraine, she said in a low voice, using my real name for the first time that afternoon. Are you okay? You seem different. For a moment, all my defenses came crashing down. I wanted to hug her, to tell her everything, to beg her to help me. But then I heard Griffin's keys in the front door. He had come home from work earlier than usual. Everything is fine, Corinne, I said quickly. I am just a little tired. Griffin came into the dining room with that perfect smile he uses whenever he has visitors. He greeted the women, elegantly kissed Rainey on the cheek, and looked at me with approval. The lunch had gone well, just as he had ordered. How are the most beautiful ladies from the office doing? He said, with that fake charisma he always displays in public. I hope my mother took good care of you. Excellently, Lois replied. Your mother is truly charming. Griffin put his hand on my shoulder, and I tensed up automatically. He felt my reaction and squeezed a little harder, a silent warning. She is the best mother in the world, he said, but his fingers were digging into my shoulder through my blouse, always looking out for everyone, always sacrificing herself for the family. The women began saying their goodbyes after dessert. Corinne was the last to leave, and before she walked out the door, she took my hand. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Keats," she said loudly, so Griffin could hear. But then she whispered in my ear, "We will see each other soon." When they were all gone, Griffin closed the door, and his expression changed completely. The mask of the perfect son disappeared, and he became the monster he truly is again. "You did well," he said to me coldly. "For once you did not embarrass me." It was not a compliment. It was nothing more than confirmation that I had fulfilled my duties as a servant. While I was picking up the dishes and cleaning the dining room, Griffin went to his room to change his clothes. But before he left, he reminded me, "By the way, the technician is coming tomorrow to check your computer." He added, "You have been browsing some strange websites." My blood ran cold. I did not even have my own computer. I only used his when I needed to. And the only strange things I had looked up lately were websites about domestic abuse shelters for battered women and emergency helplines. He knew I had been looking for information. He knew I was considering asking for help. Just then my phone rang. It was the accountant from Griffin's company again. "Mrs. Keats, can you come in at 3 this afternoon? It is urgent." I looked at the clock. It was 2:15. Griffin was in his room, probably taking a nap. It was my chance. "Yes," I said in a low voice. "I will be there." I grabbed my keys, my purse, and quietly left the house. I did not know what was waiting for me at that office, but I had a strong feeling my life was about to change forever. As I walked toward the bus stop, I remembered Corinne's words, "We will see each other soon." My sister had noticed something, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt a small spark of hope. The office building where Griffin worked was one of those modern downtown skyscrapers, all glass and steel, that commanded respect from the street. I had never been there before. For all these years, my son had kept his work life completely separate from me, as if it were a secret I should never know. I went up to the 18th floor, where the offices for Northern Business Corporation were located. The receptionist, a young woman with a professional smile, directed me to the accountant's office. My heart was beating so fast, I thought everyone in the building could hear it. Mrs. Keats, a man in his 50s, with glasses and a formal suit, greeted me. "I am Malcolm Train, the general accountant for the company. Thank you for coming so quickly." I sat in front of his desk, trying to seem calm, although I was trembling inside. His eyes held a seriousness that made me even more nervous. "Ma'am, I need to ask you some questions about your bank account." He began opening a folder filled with documents, specifically about some movements we have detected in the last few months. "I do not understand," I said, with a trembling voice. "What does my account have to do with the company?" Malcolm looked at me with a mix of pity and concern. "Mrs. Keats, we have discovered that your son Griffin has been using company funds to make transfers to your personal bank account transfers that are then withdrawn from your account." I felt as if I had been hit in the stomach. That cannot be true. Griffin is an exemplary employee. He would never do something like that. I am afraid he has. Malcolm said, showing me a series of documents. In the last 6 months, he has diverted more than $50,000 of corporate funds. The money first appears in his personal account, but immediately after it is transferred to the account he shares with you. My world collapsed. $50,000. My son was not just physically abusing me. He was also using me as an unwitting accomplice in his thefts. But I did not know anything, I said desperately. He manages my entire bank account. "I do not authorize any transfers." "We know," Malcolm said gently. "That is why I called you before proceeding legally. We need you to file a formal complaint for the misuse of your bank account. It is the only way to clear your name in this matter." I felt nauseous. Not only was I a victim of domestic violence, but now I was also a victim of financial fraud. And worst of all, my own son had turned me into his accomplice without me even knowing it. What will happen to Griffin, I asked, though deep inside I already knew the answer. If you file the complaint, he will be arrested for corporate fund embezzlement and fraudulent use of bank accounts. These are serious crimes that can lead to between 5 and 10 years in prison. I left that office in a state of total shock. I walked the downtown streets for hours without direction, trying to process all the information. My son was a thief, a criminal, and I had been his tool without even realizing it. It reminded me of those revenge stories I had once read in secret, except now I was living one myself with no idea how it would end. When I finally got home, it was 6 o'clock in the evening. Griffin was in the living room watching television as if it were just another normal day. When he saw me come in, he looked at me with that expression of superiority he always wore. "Where have you been?" he asked in an accusatory tone. "I got home from work and you were not here. The house was a mess after lunch." For the first time in years, I looked him directly in the eyes without lowering my gaze. "I was at your office." His expression changed immediately. The mask of control cracked for a second, and I could see the fear in his eyes. "What did you say? I was at your office, Griffin. I spoke with the accountant. I know what you have been doing." He got up from the couch slowly, like a predator preparing to attack. "I do not know what you are talking about, Mom. I think you are confused." $50,000, I said, feeling my voice grow steadier and firmer. $50,000 you have stolen from your company using my bank account. Griffin approached me, and for the first time in a long time, I did not back away. Something had changed inside me that afternoon. "Listen to me, you stupid old woman," he said in a low, threatening voice. "You have no idea what you are saying. That money is mine by right. You owe me for everything I have invested in you over these years, the food you eat, the roof over your head, the clothes you wear." With my own money, I replied firmly. My pension, my savings, the money I earned, working for 40 years. He grabbed my arm, but this time I did not stay quiet. "Let go of me," I screamed with all the strength I had left. He was so surprised by my reaction that he actually let go. For 3 long years, I had been his silent victim. And now, for the first time, I was screaming at him. "You are crazy," he said, but his voice no longer sounded so confident. "No one will believe you. You are a senile old woman who does not even know what she is saying. The accountant believed me, I told him. The documents speak for themselves. The transfers are registered. Everything is documented." Griffin was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Then his expression hardened even more. "If you open your mouth, if you file any kind of complaint, I swear I will destroy you," he threatened. "This house is also in my name. I can kick you out on the street tomorrow, and without my help, without my money, you will die alone like a dog." But for the very first time, his threats did not terrify me. There was something different in me, a strength I did not know I had. "I am not afraid of you anymore, Griffin," I told him. And as I said it, I realized it was true. For the first time in 3 years, I am not afraid of you. He raised his hand to hit me, but just at that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Della, my neighbor. "Lorraine," she was yelling from outside. "Lorraine, is everything all right?" I heard screaming. Griffin slowly lowered his hand. He could not hit me with a witness nearby. His reputation was too important to him. "Go see what she wants," he said through gritted teeth. "And you had better not say anything strange." I went to open the door, my legs trembling. Della was there, with a worried expression, holding a casserole dish. "Hello, dear," she said to me. "I brought you some stew I made, but I heard loud voices and got worried." Over her shoulder, I saw there was another woman with her. It was Corinne, my sister. She had on casual clothes and her hair tied back, but I recognized her immediately. "Hello," Corinne said, pretending she did not know me. "I am new to the neighborhood and was just visiting Mrs. Keats. I hope we are not bothering you." Griffin appeared behind me, his fake smile perfectly in place. "No problem at all, ladies. My mother was a little worked up because she burned the dinner. You know how older women get about these things." Della looked at him with an expression I could not decipher. "Right," she said finally. "Well, Lorraine here is the food. And remember, if you need anything at all, I am right next door." Corinne looked me straight in the eyes. "Yes, Mrs. Keats, anything you need day or night." When they left, Griffin slammed the door shut. "Damn nosy old women," he muttered. "But this is not over. Tomorrow, we are going to the bank together, and you are going to sign all the papers I tell you to. You are going to retract the complaint you probably already filed, and you are going to say it was all a big misunderstanding." "No," I said simply. "What do you mean?" "No, I am not going to sign anything. I am not going to retract any complaint, and I am not going to be an accomplice in your thefts anymore." Griffin looked at me with a rage I had never seen before. It was as if he had finally taken off all his masks and was showing me his true nature. "Fine," he said, with a calm that scared me more than his shouting ever did. "If that is how you want to play, we will play. But I am warning you, when I am done with you, you are going to wish you were never born." I did not sleep at all that night. Griffin was locked in his room, but I could hear him talking on the phone for hours. I did not know what he was planning, but I knew I had to be prepared for the worst. At 3 a.m, I heard a strange noise in the yard. I peeked out the window and saw a figure moving among the bushes. It was Della, and she seemed to be setting something up near my window. The next day, I realized what she had done. She had placed a small security camera pointed at my house, hidden carefully among the plants. My neighbor knew something terrible was happening, and she was documenting everything. The day dawned gray and rainy, as if the weather itself was reflecting the storm brewing in my life. Griffin got up earlier than usual at 5 a.m. I heard him moving around the house, talking on the phone in a low voice, preparing something that left me on edge. When I went down to the kitchen, he was already dressed in his best suit, the black one he wore for his most important meetings. His hair was perfectly combed. His tie was impeccable. He looked like the successful executive everyone believed he was, not the monster hiding under my roof. "Good morning, Mom," he said to me, in a voice that was strangely sweet, almost sing-song. "I hope you slept well." That sweetness gave me goosebumps. I knew my son well enough to recognize that when he acted nice, it was because he was planning something terrible. Yes, I lied, serving him his coffee, just as I did every morning. "Good," he said, smiling, in a way that did not reach his eyes, "because today is going to be a very special day." I have been thinking about our conversation from yesterday all night. He sat at the table and began to eat breakfast calmly, as if we were a normal family. But there was something in his attitude that kept me on high alert. "I have decided that you are right," he continued. "Maybe I have been too hard on you. After all, you are my mother and you deserve respect." His words completely confused me. Griffin admitting he had been wrong, asking for forgiveness. It was so out of character that I immediately knew it was a trap. That is why he continued spreading butter on his toast with calm precision. "We are going to go to the bank together today. We are going to clear up this whole misunderstanding with my company. You are going to explain that you authorized all the transfers, that you knew exactly what was happening with your money. There, it was the real reason behind his fake kindness. I am not going to do that, Griffin, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His smile slowly faded. Of course you are, Mom, because if you do not, some very unpleasant things are going to happen. Are you threatening me? No, Mom, he said, finishing his coffee. I am explaining reality to you. Look around you. This house, this table where you eat your breakfast, the bed you sleep in, the food you eat, all of this is possible because I allow it, and if I do not allow it anymore. He left the sentence hanging in the air, but the message was painfully clear. He was going to leave me on the street if I did not obey. Also, he added, taking out his phone, I have been thinking about calling some doctors. I know specialists who deal with older people suffering from mental problems like senile dementia. You know, it is very sad when mothers start making up stories, accusing their own sons of terrible things. I felt my blood run cold. Not only was he threatening to kick me out of the house, but also to have me declared insane incompetent, so that no one would believe my testimony. There are several witnesses who can confirm your deteriorated mental state, he continued with that cold, calculating voice. Rainey, for example, I just told her yesterday how confused you have been lately. The friends who came to lunch also noticed something strange about you. It was a lie. But he was so convincing that for a brief moment I doubted my own sanity. That was how his manipulation worked. He made me question everything, even my own perception of reality. So, we are going to the bank at 10 o'clock, he said, getting up from the table. You are going to put on your best dress. You are going to get yourself fixed up, and you are going to smile while you sign all the papers they put in front of you. Understand, I did not answer him. I just started collecting the breakfast dishes, trying desperately to buy myself some time to think. I am talking to you, he shouted, and all trace of his fake kindness disappeared. Understood, 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 I mumbled, hating myself for being such a coward. Griffin went to his office, but before he left, he warned me, do not even think about leaving this house. Do not even think about talking on the phone with anyone. I will be back at 9:30 to take you to the bank. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a kitchen chair and started to cry. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pure rage. Rage against him, but most of all rage against myself for letting things get to this point. I stayed like that for a few minutes until I heard a soft knock at the back door. It was Della with an urgent look on her face. Lorraine, open up fast, she whispered through the glass. It is important. I opened the door and she quickly came in, looking all around to make sure we were alone. I heard everything she told me without preamble. I have the camera set up near your kitchen window. I recorded your whole conversation with your son. My heart started to beat faster. Everything she said. The threats, the blackmail, the way he talked to you. I have evidence that he is forcing you to lie about the stolen money. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. What can we do with that? Della smiled. I have a friend who works at the district attorney's office. Her name is Celeste, and she specializes in domestic abuse and financial fraud cases. But I need you to come with me right now. I cannot, I said, feeling fear take over me again. Griffin told me not to leave the house. If he finds out, Lorraine, Della said, taking my hands, listen to me closely. If you go to that bank today and you sign those papers, your son will be free of all charges. He will keep stealing money and he will keep abusing you. But on top of that, you will be considered a willing accomplice in his thefts. She was right. If I signed those papers, not only would I lose my dignity, but I would also become a criminal in the eyes of the law. But if I do not go, I said with a trembling voice, he will follow through on his threats. He will kick me out of the house. He will say, I am crazy. He will not be able to do any of that. Della interrupted me firmly, because we are going to present the evidence before he can act. Celeste told me that with the recordings I have, they can arrest him immediately. I looked at the clock. It was 8:30. Griffin would be back in just 1 hour. Are you sure your friend can help me? Completely sure. But we have to go now, Lorraine. It is our only chance. I made a decision that would change my life forever. I went to my room, grabbed my purse with my most important documents, and left that house with Della. As we walked to her car, I felt something I had not felt in 3 years, courage. For the first time, I was taking control of my own life. The district attorney's office was a typical government building with long corridors and small offices. Celeste turned out to be a woman in her 40s with an intelligent gaze and a way of speaking that inspired immediate confidence. Mrs. Keats, she said, after reviewing the recordings Della had brought, what your son is doing constitutes multiple crimes: domestic abuse, financial fraud, blackmail, and attempted obstruction of justice. What does that mean? I asked, my voice shaking. It means we can arrest him today, Celeste replied. But I need you to file a formal complaint for all of these crimes. Are you willing to do that? I looked at the clock. It was 9:15. In just 15 minutes, Griffin would be arriving home to take me to the bank. When he realized I was not there, his rage would be uncontrollable. Yes, I said, feeling my voice grow firmer. I am ready to file the complaint. Celeste smiled. Perfect. While you fill out the papers, I will coordinate with the police to have them go and arrest your son. Do you know where he is right now? He should be arriving at my house, I said. He told me he would pick me up at 9:30. Even better, Celeste said, grabbing her phone. It is easier to arrest him at a known location. While I was filling out the complaint forms, Celeste coordinated with the police. Della stayed with me the whole time, holding my hand, giving me strength. Are you sure about this, Lorraine? She asked me softly. Once we sign these papers, there is no turning back. I have never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied. At 10:30, Celeste's phone rang. It was the police, confirming that they had arrested Griffin at my house. They found him screaming like a madman, breaking things and looking for me all over the place. He is in custody, Celeste told me. The charges are serious. It is very likely he will not be able to get bail. I felt as if a 1,000-pound weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in 3 years, I knew I was going to sleep without fear. When we got back to my house that afternoon, the place looked like a battlefield. Griffin had destroyed practically everything in his path before the police arrested him. The couch cushions were torn apart. There were broken dishes scattered across the kitchen floor, and the family photos that once hung on the walls were smashed into pieces. My God, Della whispered, looking at the destruction. How could he do all this in such a short time? I knew the answer. I knew the blind fury of Griffin when things did not go his way. I had seen that rage before, but never directed at inanimate objects. Usually I was the target of his anger. Celeste, who had come with us to document the damage, was taking photos of everything. This will serve as additional evidence of his violent behavior, she explained. Destruction of property during an episode of rage. The judge will see exactly what kind of person your son is. While we were cleaning up the broken glass and picking up the pieces of my former life, my phone started ringing insistently. It was an unknown number. Do not answer it, Celeste warned me. It is probably him calling from jail. Let it go to voicemail. Indeed, When I checked the messages, it was Griffin's voice, but it sounded completely different. It was no longer the threatening monster from the morning. It was the scared child he pretended to be whenever he wanted to manipulate me. "Mom," his voice said, breaking in the recording. "Mom, please come get me out of here." It was all a misunderstanding. "I never meant to hurt you. You know I love you. You are the most important thing in my life. Please, Mom, do not let me rot in this jail. I am your son, your only son." He had left 5 similar messages, each one more desperate than the last. In the final one, he was even crying. "It is part of his manipulation strategy," Celeste explained to me. "First, violence and threats, now victimhood and guilt. It is a typical pattern in abusers. Even though I rationally understood what was happening, hearing my son cry broke my heart. For 35 years, he had been my baby, my reason for living. It was painfully hard to separate the monster he had become from the boy he once was. "Are you okay?" Della asked, noticing my expression. "It is complicated," I admitted. "I know I did the right thing, but he is still my son." That night, Della insisted that I stay at her house. "Your house is not safe right now," she told me. "Griffin has friends, and maybe even Rainey. Someone might come looking for revenge." She was right. In the voicemails, Griffin had mentioned that Rainey was handling things from the outside. I did not know exactly what that meant, but I was afraid to find out. Della's house was small, but cozy. It had a guest room with a twin bed and a little desk. "It was my daughter's room before she got married," she explained. "Now it is yours for as long as you need it." For the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without fear. I did not have to worry about Griffin's footsteps in the hallway, his late-night screaming, or waking up to punches. It was a strange, almost unsettling feeling. Peace can also be frightening when you are not used to it. The next day, Celeste called me early with news. "Griffin's bail hearing is today at 2 o'clock in the afternoon," Celeste informed me. "The judge will decide if he can be released from jail while he waits for his trial." "What are the chances he will be released?" I asked, feeling the familiar shadow of fear return. "With the evidence we have, very slim," she said. "But I need you to come and testify at the hearing. Your testimony will be crucial for the judge to understand the danger he poses." The hearing took place in a small courtroom. Griffin was sitting at the defense table wearing an orange jumpsuit. When he saw me walk in, his expression changed completely. He was no longer the repentant child from the voicemails. He was pure, contained rage. Rainey was sitting on the public benches, elegantly dressed as always, but she looked haggard, as if she had not slept in days. When our eyes met, I saw something in hers that surprised me. Shame. The judge was an older man in his 60s with a serious but fair look. He reviewed all the documents before beginning. "Mrs. Keats," he said to me when it was my turn to testify, "tell me in your own words what you have been living through in your home for the last few years." I took a deep breath and began to speak. I told them about the beatings, about the control over my money, about the threats, about the constant humiliation. My voice broke at times, but I kept talking. When I mentioned the $50,000 he had stolen, I saw Griffin tense up in his seat. His lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit, tried to object constantly, but the judge silenced him. "And what did your son tell you yesterday morning regarding your testimony?" the judge asked. "He threatened to have me declared mentally incompetent if I did not lie for him. He told me he would kick me out on the street and that I would be left with nothing." The judge reviewed the recordings Della had made. He listened to them in their entirety with headphones while the whole courtroom waited in silence. Mr. Griffin Keats, the judge said, when he was done, the evidence presented shows a clear pattern of domestic abuse, financial fraud, and witness intimidation. Considering the seriousness of the charges and the risk you pose to the victim, your request for bail is denied. You will remain in custody until the date of your trial. Griffin exploded. "This is an injustice," he shouted, standing up. "That crazy old woman is making everything up. I am a respectable citizen. I have rights." The guards had to hold him down as he continued to scream, "You are going to regret this, Mom. When I get out of here, I am going to make you pay for every single day I spend in this jail." His threats echoed throughout the courtroom, confirming exactly what I had testified about his violent character. After the hearing, Rainey approached me in the courthouse. "Mrs. Keats," she said in a trembling voice, "I need to talk to you." Celeste and Della tensed up, but I signaled to them that I was okay. "What do you want, Rainey?" I asked. "I want to apologize," she said. And for the first time since I had known her, her voice sounded genuine. "I knew something was not right in that house. I heard the screaming. I saw your bruises. I noticed how you flinched every single time he raised his voice. Then why did you never say anything I asked?" "Because I was scared," she admitted. "Griffin had threatened me too. He told me that if I ever betrayed him, he would destroy my career, my reputation. And I was a coward. I let you suffer alone because I was afraid of losing my comfortable life." Her eyes filled with tears. "When they arrested him yesterday, I found documents in his home office. He had not just been stealing money from his company. He had also been stealing from my personal account. We have been married for 2 years, and I never realized he was a fraudster." "What are you going to do now?" I asked her quietly. "I am going to file for divorce immediately," she said, her voice filled with determination. "And I am going to testify against him at his trial. I have already spoken with a lawyer. I want to collaborate with the district attorney's office to make him pay for everything he did to us." Her words sounded like the narration of a real-life revenge audio story, one in which victims who once stayed silent finally found their voices together. When we left the courthouse, I felt something I had not experienced in years: genuine hope. Not only had I managed to escape from my son, but now I had allies in my fight for justice. That afternoon, as we walked back to Della's house, Celeste gave me more good news. The company where Griffin worked wants to reach an agreement, she informed me. They are willing not to press additional charges against you if you cooperate by returning the stolen money. Also, as an acknowledgement that you were a victim of fraud, they are going to pay you a compensation of $20,000. $20,000. It was more money than I had seen available in the last 3 years. "What about my house?" I asked immediately. Griffin said it was in his name too. "We checked the documents," Celeste said, smiling. "Your son lied. The deed is still only in your name. He forged some papers, but legally, the house is completely yours." For the first time in such a long while, I began to see a possible future. A future where I could live without fear, where I could make my own decisions, where I could truly be the owner of my own life. But I also knew that Griffin was not going to give up easily. His threats at the hearing had been clear. This war was only just beginning. 3 weeks after Griffin's arrest, my life had completely changed, but not in the way I had expected. Although I was physically safe at Della's house, psychologically, I was still his prisoner. I had developed a constant paranoia that kept me awake most nights. Every small noise made me jump. Every car that stopped in front of the house made me run to the window in panic. Every unknown phone call gave me a sudden wave of dread. Celeste had explained that it was normal that after years of abuse, the fear does not simply disappear overnight. It is post-traumatic stress disorder, she told me. Your mind and body are used to living in a constant state of alert. It is going to take time to heal. But there was more than just simple trauma. Griffin had managed to get messages to me from jail messages that chilled me to the bone. The first one came through a different lawyer, not his official representative. It was a handwritten letter in the handwriting I knew so well. Dear Mom, it said, I hope you are enjoying your little victory. I hope you feel very brave for betraying me. But I want you to know something. This is not over. I know things about you that no one else knows. Secrets you kept for 40 years while working at that law firm. Things that could ruin not only your reputation, but also your freedom. My heart stopped as I read those lines. What secrets, during my 40 years as a secretary at Sullivan and Associates, I had handled confidential information, of course, but I had never done anything illegal. Remember the case of Williams versus the state mom? The one from 15 years ago. I found the documents. You hid the ones you altered to help Mr. Sullivan win that multi-million-dollar case documents that, if they come to light, could send you to prison for obstruction of justice. My hands began trembling violently. I vaguely remembered the Williams case. It had been a very difficult trial where the firm represented a pharmaceutical company accused of concealing fatal side effects of a medication. Mr. Sullivan had asked me to organize some documents to remove certain memos that could hurt his client. I had thought it was normal, that it was simply part of my job as a secretary. I never fully understood the legal implications of what I had done. But Griffin was right. I had technically altered evidence in a court case. I have copies of everything, Mom. And if you do not drop the charges against me, if you do not come and publicly apologize for your lies, those documents are going to end up in the district attorney's hands. Imagine the headlines: 61-year-old secretary arrested for complicity in covering up drug deaths. The rest of the letter detailed with cruel precision exactly how Griffin was going to destroy my life if I did not obey him. He claimed he had media contacts. He said he knew journalists who would pay well for a story of judicial corruption. My photo would be in every newspaper. My name would be forever associated with scandal. When Della found me crying with the letter in my hands, she immediately called Celeste. This is clear blackmail, Celeste said after reading the letter. But we need to know if his threats have any real basis. What exactly do you remember about the Williams case? I told her everything I remembered, including the instructions Mr. Sullivan had given me about reorganizing the documents. Did you know that what you were doing could be illegal? She asked me. No, I said honestly. I was just following orders, Mr. Sullivan told me it was normal procedure to protect client confidentiality. Celeste sighed heavily. Legally, ignorance is no excuse. If you really altered evidence, even if it was without criminal intent, you technically did commit a crime. My world collapsed all over again. Just when I thought I had finally escaped from Griffin's clutches, he had found another way to control me. What do I do? I asked desperately. If I drop the charges, he gets out and he will kill me. If I do not, I go to jail for something I did 15 years ago without knowing it was illegal. First, calm down, Celeste told me firmly. Second, we are going to investigate exactly what documents your son has and how he got them. And third, we are going to look for ways to minimize the legal damage if it turns out there really is evidence against you. The next few days were a legal investigation nightmare. Celeste worked with a team of lawyers specializing in old cases to review the entire Williams case file. Meanwhile, I lived in a constant state of terror, waiting for them to come and arrest me at any moment. Della was my salvation during those dark weeks. Not only did she give me refuge in her home, but she became the sister I never had. Every night she would sit with me while I cried, make me chamomile tea to help me sleep, and constantly remind me that I was not alone. No matter what happens, she would tell me softly, "We are going to face it together. You are no longer that scared woman who lived under your son's terrorism." But deep inside, I still felt exactly like that terrified woman. Griffin had achieved what he wanted. He had dragged me back to the state of fear and hopelessness that had defined my life for 3 years. A week later, the second letter arrived, even crueler than the first. "I see you have not learned your lesson, Mom. I see you still think you can defy me. That is fine. Now, everyone is going to find out what kind of person you really are." Along with the letter, there was an envelope with photographs. Photographs of documents, indeed, internal memos from Sullivan and associates with my handwriting on them, notes I had written in the margins, dates that had been altered, and pages that were missing from the original files. These photos are going to be in the newspaper tomorrow night. If you do not come and visit me in jail before Friday, you will come alone without lawyers, without witnesses, and you will bring a signed letter asking to drop all the charges against me because it was all a misunderstanding caused by your mental deterioration. My mental deterioration, that accusation chilled my blood all over again. If you do not come, not only will these photos be in the newspapers, but you will also see the recordings. Recordings? What recordings? Did you think I did not know you had cameras installed in the house? Mom, did you think I was that stupid? I have recordings too. Recordings of you accepting cash from clients at the firm. Money you never reported as income. Tax evasion, Mom. Another 15 years in prison. This time it was not just blackmail. It was all-out psychological warfare. Griffin had been preparing for this moment for months, maybe even years. He had collected evidence, planned every move, and anticipated my rebellion. When Celeste read the second letter, her expression became very serious. "Lorraine, I need you to tell me the complete truth about your time at the firm. Anything you might have done, any irregular situation, any money you received outside of your salary." I told her about the cash Christmas bonuses that Mr. Sullivan had given me every year. Money I never declared because I thought they were personal gifts. I told her about the times when grateful clients had given me cash tips for special services. Money I also never reported because I truly did not know I had to. In total, Celeste asked carefully, "How much money are we talking about over 40 years? Maybe $1,000, I admitted with shame. Celeste quickly calculated. With interest and penalties, we would be looking at a tax debt of about $40,000. But the most serious thing is that it is technically tax evasion. My son had built a perfect trap. If I reported him, he would destroy me with evidence of my own mistakes. If I did not report him, he would remain free to abuse me and continue stealing money. There is a third option, Celeste said, after thinking for a long moment. An option neither of you will expect. We get ahead of him. We voluntarily confess all your mistakes before he can use them as blackmail. And we use that confession to show that your son is a master manipulator who exerts psychological control over his victims, even from jail. It was a risky gamble. It meant publicly admitting I had committed crimes facing possible legal consequences and exposing myself to public humiliation. But it also meant taking away Griffin's main weapon, my secret. If we do this, Celeste continued, your son loses all his power over you. He can no longer blackmail you because there will be nothing left to hide. I looked out the window at my house that remained empty and shattered across the street. That house represented my past, my mistakes, my fears, but it also represented my future, my freedom, my chance to finally start over. Let's do it, I finally told her. I am tired of living in fear. I am tired of my son controlling my life from a jail cell. Celeste smiled faintly. Tomorrow, we are going to give Griffin the surprise of his life. The day we decided to fight back arrived faster than I expected. Celeste had organized a press conference for 2 o'clock in the afternoon where I would voluntarily confess all my past mistakes before Griffin could use them against me. It was a risky strategy, but it was our only chance to regain control of the situation. That morning, I woke up with a mental clarity I had not felt in years. For the first time since Griffin's arrest, I was not afraid. I had made a decision that would change my life forever, and strangely, I felt at peace with it. Della helped me get ready. I put on my most serious gray dress, the one I used for formal occasions at the firm. I applied a little makeup, just enough not to look haggard, but without trying to hide who I really was. Are you sure about this? Lorraine Della asked me for the 5th time that morning. Once you say those words in public, there will be no going back. I am completely sure, I replied, surprised by the firmness of my own voice. For 3 years, I lived as a prisoner in my own home, out of fear of the consequences. I am not going to remain a prisoner of my past mistakes. At noon, Celeste called me with unexpected news. Lorraine, something extraordinary just happened. Douglas Parrish Griffin's boss at the company wants to talk to you before the press conference. Douglas was the man who had discovered Griffin's thefts, the same man who had turned ashen when he found out the truth. I did not understand why he wanted to speak with me. We met in Celeste's office. Douglas was a man in his 50s with gray hair and a presence that commanded respect. When he saw me come in, he immediately rose from his seat. "Mrs. Keats," he said to me in a warm but serious voice. "First, I want to apologize. If I had supervised Griffin better, if I had paid attention to the red flags, maybe we could have prevented you from suffering so much." His words surprised me. You had no way of knowing what was happening inside my house. Maybe not, Douglas said, sitting down in front of me, but I did have a way of knowing that something strange was going on with the company's finances. Your son's thefts did not start 6 months ago. They started 2 years ago. My heart stopped. 2 years. 2 years, Douglas confirmed. Small amounts at first, so small that we attributed them to accounting errors. But when we started investigating, after your complaint, we discovered he had been stealing systematically for a long time. Celeste leaned forward. "How much money are we talking about in total? $130,000, Douglas said gravely, which went directly to accounts he controlled, including your bank account. I felt nauseous. Not only had I been a victim of physical and psychological abuse, but I had also been the unwitting tool in a massive robbery that lasted for 2 entire years. But there is more. Douglas continued. When Griffin was arrested, our legal department decided to investigate more deeply. We discovered he had been forging reports, manipulating contracts, and even selling the company's confidential information to competitors. Why are you telling me this? I asked, still struggling to process everything. Douglas smiled for the first time since the conversation had started. Because we want to offer you a job, Mrs. Keats, a real job. During our investigation, we reviewed your work history, 40 years at Sullivan and Associates, impeccable references experience with complex cases. We need someone with your background to help us rebuild everything your son destroyed. I could not believe what I was hearing. Instead of facing arrest and public humiliation, I was being offered a chance to start over. The salary would be $4,000 a month. Douglas continued, plus health benefits, plus a special compensation of $50,000 as recognition for the damage we unintentionally caused you. $4,000 a month was more than 3 times my current pension and $50,000 in compensation. Suddenly, my future did not look so hopeless. But there is one condition, Douglas added. We need you to testify at your son's trial. Your testimony will be crucial to ensuring he pays for all his crimes, not just the ones he committed against you. Of course, I said without hesitation, I will do whatever it takes. At 2:00 in the afternoon, the press room was full of journalists, cameras, and microphones. Celeste had invited all the local media, explaining that a victim of domestic violence would be making an important statement about blackmail from jail. When I sat in front of those cameras, I felt a different kind of fear from the one that had ruled me for years. It was not fear of Griffin. It was not fear of the beatings or the threats. It was fear of freedom itself, fear of the responsibility that comes with being the true owner of my own life. My name is Lorraine Keats. I began looking directly into the cameras. I am 61 years old, and for the last 3 years, I have been a victim of domestic violence by my son, Griffin Keats. I told my complete story, the beatings, the financial control, the threats, the systematic theft of my money. But I also told the part that Griffin expected me to keep secret. During my 40 years working as a secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates, I made mistakes. I admitted feeling my voice grow firmer with each word. Mistakes that I did not know were illegal at the time, but that I now recognize as such. I explained the Williams case, the altered documents, the unreported money, everything. I held nothing back. My son discovered these mistakes, and he has been using them to blackmail me from jail. He threatened to publicly expose me if I did not drop the charges against him. Today, I am here to take that weapon away from him. I would rather face the consequences of my mistakes than continue to be a victim of his manipulation. The room was completely silent. The journalists were taking furious notes. The cameras were recording every single word. I want to send a message to all the women who are being abused by their sons, their husbands, or their partners, I continued. Emotional blackmail, financial control, threats of exposure, they are all forms of abuse. Do not let the fear of public judgment keep you as a prisoner. Freedom is worth more than reputation. After the press conference, Celeste informed me that the district attorney's office had decided not to press charges against me for my past mistakes. Your voluntary confession, combined with the fact that you were a victim of blackmail, makes you more useful as a witness than as a defendant, Celeste explained with steady conviction. That night, for the very first time in months, I returned to sleep in my own house. Della insisted on staying with me for the first few nights until I felt completely safe again. As I lay down in my own bed, surrounded by walls that had once felt like a prison, I realized I was experiencing something I had not felt in 3 long years, total control over my own life. Griffin was still in jail, facing multiple charges that would almost certainly keep him there for many years. His blackmail had completely lost its grip because I no longer had any secrets left to hide. My phone rang. It was a number from the jail, but this time I was not afraid to answer. Mom. It was Griffin's voice, but it sounded utterly defeated. I saw your press conference on the news, and what do you think of it? I asked him with a calmness that surprised even me. You destroyed everything, he whispered. But without the fury, I expected only a deep sadness. You destroyed my last chance to get out of here. No, Griffin, I replied softly. You destroyed that chance when you decided to turn your own mother into your victim. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Are you ever going to forgive me? He finally asked. Someday, I said honestly. When you pay for what you did, when you seek real help to change, when you truly understand the damage you caused, someday I might be able to forgive you. but I will never forget. I hung up the phone and turned it off, feeling no guilt, only clarity. Tomorrow, I would begin my new job and step into my new life. But that night, all I wanted was to sleep peacefully in my own home, without fear, without threats, without blackmail. For the first time in 3 years, I was completely free. And although the path had been painful, although I had been forced to face my own mistakes publicly, and although I had lost the relationship with my only son forever, I knew in my heart I had made the right decision. Griffin had learned that victims can become strong, that secrets lose their destructive power once exposed to the light, and that justice, although slow, does eventually arrive. And I had learned that it is never too late to reclaim your own life, no matter how many years you have lived in the shadows. This was my story of liberation, my own testimony of survival, a story that I hope can inspire others who are trapped in silence to find their courage. Perhaps one day, women who listen to tales like mine, or even read about them in places filled with Reddit revenge stories, will realize they are not alone and that there is always a path out of the darkness. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have chosen to fight back, even at the cost of everything familiar? Share your thoughts and experiences below in the comments. I truly want to hear from you. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss more powerful stories like this one. And when this video ends, I invite you to watch the recommended story on your screen. It is one of my favorites, filled with lessons just as meaningful as mine. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next story.